It's always hard to take that decision, even as an accomplished politician, to be completely honest.
The elections this year were described as one of the tightest race in Slovenian history. The gap was 0.68%.
What I'm worried about is exactly that.
It felt like two different futures for Slovenia.
So it's really a split parliament at the moment, but to be brutally honest.
And which direction are we heading now? I am so excited to be joined today from Slovenia by Meira Hot. You recently stepped down as Vice President of the National Assembly, the National Parliament. You are also Vice President of the Social Democrats.
You never really have a thick skin, the way they say it. You don't get a thick skin.
At a certain point, it gets to you.
And you always ask yourself, why am I doing this?
You're not doing this for the fun of it, right?
No.
I want to go back a bit to the women that your government brought to life, so to speak.
Yes.
They're a huge name and a lot of firsts.
The word that would come to my mind would be shocking.
Your career in politics got started because of a parking issue in your hometown. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that's true. It was quite funny. I'm a lawyer by profession. I never thought about politics in my younger days. But then the mayor back in 2010, he wanted to close our city for traffic entirely, meaning that it would be very, very difficult for the citizens to literally go home. You know, you wouldn't get a parking space. You would have to park 2 kilometers outside of the city. And he did that without any consultation with the citizens. I was always a social democrat by heart, so that wasn't a hard choice. And then I also had a lot of friends among social democrats, so that was a very easy choice for me to do. And what was also inspiring back then is that our candidate was Mr. Peter Bosman, who later became the first black mayor from Central and Eastern Europe. And it was really quite an honor to be able to work with him.
Wow. This sounds kind of like in a book where you just get sliding into politics. But I get it. Parking and infrastructure issues can be very bothersome. And that's what politics is all about, to get involved and get active and
Exactly.
use your voice, yeah, instead of complaining or just complaining.
You know how they say, if you're not going to be involved in politics, politics is going to be involved with you. Sooner or later, we all realize that politics is the one that is driving our lives, and being passive is just not an option.
Would you say that along this journey, or kind of roller coaster journey as well, that there was this very single defining moment where you thought, this is where I belong. I love this specific spot in politics that I'm in now?
I must say that, first of all, when I was active locally, there were quite some issues which I was able to solve, and really helping people directly. And I was always, even as a lawyer, I was into human rights law, and I studied international law and human rights law specifically. And I was always doing more of a pro bono work. But, you know, that's very long term. So here, when you could just see that you are actually making a change in the people's life, just made me feel so proud. And then later on, when I joined the parliament in Ljubljana, well, to put in focus some actually animal welfare issues, because there was quite a lot of animal torture cases in Slovenia back then. And it was really an issue very strong in my heart. So when we were able to, for example, be one of the first countries in the EU to change the animal status from being a matter to being a sentient living being, and we were really progressive on that. And that's one of the first issues I actually championed. That's when I realized, okay, this is where I want to be. This is where I belong. It's very hard. It's a long-term work. You don't get results immediately. But at the end of the day, you're so proud and happy that you're able to really make a change in the society.
Absolutely. And even though it takes some time to get
Yes.
there, you'll eventually see the results, which is, I can imagine it's kind of like a heartwarming moment, like this really, yeah, we fought for this and now we're here. Did you ever see yourself in a leadership position, or was it something that you were getting there step by step?
No, I never set out to be in the leadership position. I mean, honestly, if you asked me a few years ago, I would never say I was going to be stepping into a leadership position, but life is made full of that. Never say never, but literally, and I think my political career is really a symbolic stepstone about never saying never. It came naturally. I am a strong proponent of learning politics, really gradually being involved from local level to then going up to the state level. I think it really gives you, as a woman especially, it empowers you more to be a leader if you had crossed all of the stepping stones that you're supposed to, in my own opinion. Locally, I learned as a council member about all the acts that are being proposed by the local government. And then also, I think you're building a different kind of relations if you're not, shoot straight to a leadership position. But it's not something I actually struggled to be, wanted to be. I think it's more a recognition of the work I've been doing for so many years, that at the end of the day, people do give you their trust and they elect you in order to really fulfill the most leadership position. As the vice president of parliament, I gained even further confidence from the people. As a woman, we have to maybe work really twice as hard in order to achieve half as many results as men. But at the end of the day, everything is possible, everything is achievable. Maybe as women, we don't really set out to be, oh, I'm going to be a leader if I enter politics. But you can see that you're more than capable and that the trust of the people is really placed, justified.
You said we as women, we have to work twice as hard, especially in politics. What would be certain aspects of this working twice as hard? What would you say are the stepping stones in this area?
Well, of course, I think that's now already a stereotype, but it's such a true stereotype. We are always judged by our looks, how we dress, how we put our makeup, the hair. It's always an issue with women's politicians. And what we are bringing to the table in the sense of our intellectual contribution to the work, it's not really acknowledged by our male colleagues. So that's what I mean. And then you really need to work twice as hard to prove yourself, to prove that you're more than just your hair or your clothes, or that it doesn't matter how you're dressed. It's what you're saying and talking. I hope and feel that it might be easier now for the younger generation, but if I'm being realistic, even now, as we are speaking these days, the former president of parliament wore this jacket, and it was one of the main issues in our media now because of the price of the jacket, whatever, the blazer. And it shouldn't be like that. But I think it's a way of degrading women's work in politics is by, making a point out of who's wearing what instead of who's saying what.
It's a sad reality. We've come far, but there is still a lot to get done.
Yes.
You had a wonderful and interesting jump from local politics and national politics. Now, local politics is, of course, in a way more brutal because they are your neighbors. You know them. What has being in local politics taught you that national parliament never could?
First of all, never forget the people. It taught me that you really need to listen. Sometimes in this fast world, I think once you're in a national politics, you tend not to be so involved directly with people. And on one hand, like you said perfectly, it is brutal. But on the other hand, that brutality is necessary because you have to remember why you are, I will say in Ljubljana, because parliament is Ljubljana. I always have to stay focused on the people. And what taught me most was that you really need to, that sometimes people don't really need a quick solution. They need somebody to listen to who listens to them. They need to feel acknowledged. They need to feel that their politicians are going to be fighting for them in parliament. One of my campaign slogans for the past 2 mandates was always, I'm going to be your voice in Ljubljana. And in order to be their voice, you of course have to listen to them, talk to them. I didn't get an apartment in Ljubljana because I wanted to stay in touch with my community on a daily basis. So I will always remember from the local part, always stay in touch, and you are a servant to the people. And that's something that probably if I would be shot straight to parliament, I wouldn't get that experience.
Wonderfully said. Now, I want to jump to another topic, which has been very active recently. Also in Slovenia, you've recently had national elections. The elections this year were described as one of the tightest race in Slovenian history. The gap was 0.68%. It's like two completely different outcomes that could have been. What was going through your mind during the election night? And what was the entire electoral campaign for you like? Because it continued to be a very tight race throughout the electoral campaign.
I think the word that would come to my mind firstly would be shocking and surprising because, yeah, this was the first election in Slovenia that was really out of the normal. We had foreign interference. We had a lot of fake videos, fake news on the digital. It was all so close. You didn't really feel that the message we're trying to pass to the people in the campaign was going through. I was very focused on my local campaign and I was really trying to keep it very positive. I had a lot of young people helping me being activists in the campaign. We were going all around the municipality. We visited every single community twice and I was trying to focus on the people.
You had a wonderful campaign slogan.
Yeah.
Which was it?
Our Meira.
I love it. It really
you.
has this inclusive of everybody feels heard in a way that you are the voice.
Yes,
How
yes.
did you come? How did this
Oh.
slogan come?
Literally from the people, because on the social media back in 2022, on my private social media, one of the comments that would come up the most was our Meira. You are ours, our Meira, and so on. Because I was, as I told you before, I was trying to be the voice of my city in Ljubljana. You see, because of the centralization, what tends to happen is that the suburbs are not being heard enough in parliament. So I was very vocal in the first mandate. So what people started saying is, "Oh, you are ours, you are ours." And then I was thinking back home and talking to my team, and I was saying, "But maybe that is my slogan." Exactly, because I am theirs and they are my people and we are together, we are ours. And then I used it again for this campaign. I used it in 2022 and again for this campaign because it's what people identify with and they all say, yes, you are ours. It's like a statement. It's like a fact. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm their mayor and they're my people.
I love that slogan. It's so great. And
Thank you.
for all the women who want to run at a certain point in politics, take notes because this slogan is actually quite great. Now, going a bit back to the results of the election night, what was, from your point of view now, what is the Social Democrats' role at the moment while the government is finding itself? There are coalition negotiations, conversations, and also my question is, in which direction are we heading? Because as I mentioned during the electoral night, there were it felt like two different futures for Slovenia. And which direction are we heading now?
So, first of all, the Social Democrats, of course, during the campaign and also afterward, we were stressing that we want a left central government. We will not be entering any right winged government, and we are still keeping to that point. It's a decision that we are strongly abiding to. And in the beginning, after the election, the relative winner of the election was the party from our PM, so Mr. Robert Golob, which is the Freedom Party, acquired 29 seats. But then SDS, Janša's party on the right wing, acquired the 28. So it's really a split parliament at the moment. There are 7 parties, 2 big ones, and then smaller parties. Social Democrats have 6 seats. And in the beginning, it looked like we are going to enter government, like a left central government is going to be formed, and there were talks and negotiation on the way. But unfortunately, last Friday, when we had the first session of the new assembly and we were electing the new president became Mr. Stevanovic. He's a member of the smallest party. It's called Resnica. It's sort of a movement party. It started upon anti-COVID protests and the COVID measures. So a bit of an absurdity is that this party actually started as a movement against Mr. Janša, who was PM back then in the COVID time. And the result of the vote was that Mr. Stevanovic was therefore elected by right-wing votes. A coalition was formed by SDS, Nova Slovenia, again a right-wing party, Demokrati, which was founded by a former member of Janša's party, and Resnica, of course. We now see it as a new possible government that could be formed by the right wing. Negotiation and the talks are still on the way on the left side as well. nothing is really a done deal yet. But I think in the coming weeks, we are going to be able to see who is actually able to get the 46 votes. Unfortunately, I must say, I'm very sad as a social democrat, of course, to be saying that, but it seems at this moment that a right-wing government, right-wing populist government will be formed. And personally, I'm quite sad about that because I was very proud that Slovenia was one of the rare countries when you look at it, comparing to neighboring Italy, Austria, Croatia, and Hungary, who had a left center government. And I think that might change now due to the fact that the parliament is split on half.
I want to go back a bit to the women that your government brought to life, so to speak.
Yes.
They are a huge name and a lot of firsts. You've had the first female president, Natasha Musar, first female minister of foreign affairs, Tanya Fayon, who was also on this podcast. And of course, you. There are like a lot of great names. From your own experience, what does Slovenia right at the moment when it comes to supporting female politicians? And what is still not changing fast enough, especially if we're considering that the right wing might take over now in government?
I think as a society, Slovenia is quite advanced in the regards of women's rights and women standing in society, being in politics, being in law or management, not so much. I think management is still quite men's field in Slovenia as well. But we as a society, and I guess it all stems down from education, we do empower women to go ahead. There's not as much discrimination, at least not direct discrimination in that sense, where you would feel as a woman, I cannot do that, or I'm not allowed to do that. So in that regard, we really advance. More of a problem now would be that some professions are highly feminized, but at the top of them, they're still just men. Judiciary would be one of those examples. For example, there are 90% of judges on the first level are women, but on the top level, I think it's 80% to 20. I'm not now giving you a correct proper 100% data, but something like that.
Yeah, but around. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite low. So you can still see that there's a hidden discrimination that you cannot really point upon in the sense of maybe in the commission or the ones who are deciding upon who is going to lead are still choosing men over women. There was also one very big case recently, which actually ended a saga of 20 years in regard to reproductive rights for single women in Slovenia.
What do you mean by reproductive rights for single women?
If you're a single woman, you cannot use IVF in Slovenia, because men and woman are family and you have to be a couple. There was a predicament in the law that says that only couples can use IVF. And we were fighting that fight for 20 years, actually, literally not to be discriminated upon your status.
Okay. I did not know that.
And the Constitutional Court ruled last year that single women should get access to it as well. And that's a really, really big win. So one of the really big safeguards for women's rights in Slovenia is the Constitutional Court. And even with the right-wing government, I'm still sure they're going to be the last, I guess, warriors for the Constitution and for our women's rights. What I'm worried about is exactly that. What would happen with the, I don't know, financing of right to abortion? Because those are the steps the right-wing government would usually take in order to not formally forbid abortion, but to really deny access to it and make it based on your wealthy status, isn't it?
There are so many aspects now that you've told us I didn't even think about. The IVF for single mothers, I never thought about this, that it could be an issue.
Yeah.
Then again, when it comes to passing laws, there's so many aspects and complex aspects of it that usually one doesn't take into consideration. I want to go back a bit to running for a position for women. What do you think is the biggest difference between a woman who runs for a position in a political position and one who is equally talented but doesn't have the confidence or doesn't really have the courage to run for that position? What would you say is the main difference between these two candidates? Because I often see there is so much potential in leadership for women, but as you perfectly mentioned, it's something you step in. I'm really curious, what is the main difference between these two types of women?
I think both are worried still. I think both know what politics or standing for office brings to you. So no private time. You give your life away for people to judge you upon it. And as women, we are, I think, very afraid of being judged that way because we are already judged, even in our private everyday life. We are always judged. So the difference might be in the fact that after you stand election, after maybe you doing some of it, is that you're still critical of yourself, but you have more confidence, and slowly you're starting to say, I don't care what they're saying. I know I'm capable and I'm gonna go through it. But if I think of myself back then, I was literally scared to run for office. It's always hard to take that decision, even as an accomplished politician, to be completely honest. Every time you take the decision of running for office, you know what that brings to you. You know that you're going to be the subject of criticism and debates again upon what you're wearing, all of that stuff. And you always ask yourself, why am I doing this?
You're not doing this for the fun of it, right?
No. There's really, it is hard. And as a woman, I think we always tend to be very self-critical.
Oh, yeah.
You overthink a lot. And so maybe the difference is definitely in confidence, in self-confidence. I'm sure of that. And maybe because now you know what to expect. So it's a bit easier. But to be brutally honest, you never really have a thick skin the way they say it. You don't get a thick skin.
At a certain point, it gets to you.
Yes, I think it does. I think nobody can be completely oblivious to all of the comments and all of the attacks, because at the end of the day, we're all humans and we all have our emotions, and we're all, with myself, I know I have a really innate principle of justice. Like, so if I see something that's not just, or it's a lie, or it's an injustice, it tends to really frustrate me. And as a politician, you cannot immediately go and set the record straight. What PR usually tell you to do is keep quiet.
Yeah.
Don't involve
let it die out.
Let it die. Yeah. Don't get involved in arguments. Not everybody can like you. Not every wrong can make a right. But as a person, you're like, yeah, but I want to,
Yeah.
And
you kind of feel caged.
You feel bravo. Oh, that's the word I was looking for. That's exactly how you feel. And then I guess with the years passing by and all of the situation going by, you think, okay, I've been here. I realize I do not have to jump on everyone, but I can curse and I can cry at my own house, but I will still get up next day and fight. I'm being really completely honest here, because I think it's very important for also your audience to understand we are not robots, and women should not be expected to be robots.
Yeah.
One of the issues that I had one of the biggest problem was, especially male politicians, when I even to this day this happens to me, but before it was more emphasized, maybe saying you're too emotional, you need to not be as emotional, don't be as, step back a bit, try to be more robotic, just don't be as emotional. And I'm thinking, but my emotions, my empathy is what's driving me in this field anyway. Because if I didn't have my empathy, how could I understand people in need? How could I be helping, for example, children with special needs? One of the things I was fighting for 8 years was to get a special fund for children with rare disease. Now, if you're a robotic politician who doesn't have emotions, you will not be fighting that fight. So I think one of the plus sides of women in politics is we are emphasizing issues that would never be in front if it was up to male politicians. And that's also because we tend to embrace our emotions and we tend to act differently. And I really don't like the fact that this is being portrayed as bad. I think that's an added value. That's an added value that women can bring to the table. I'm very proud of that.
And it doesn't mean that someone is hysterical. It just means that you see we're wired differently. And
Yes,
this leads me to a question is, do you think we still nowadays are living in a political infrastructure that was made for men mostly
yes,
than
yes,
for both?
absolutely. Absolutely for men, no, definitely. And I liked how you say this doesn't mean we are hysterical. That's one of the
Yeah.
words they use, in order to put you down in their place, isn't it? Oh, you're acting hysterical. And you're just saying, I'm not being hysterical. It's just a point I'm making. Now, if I raise my voice a bit, I'm an angry, hysterical woman. But if a man does that, he's very self-assured, isn't it?
He knows what he wants, like just like that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just a completely different debate. And I think, yeah, like you said, it's definitely still a very strongly male world. And even now, you mentioned before, our former president of parliament, she was, in those regards that we were just talking about, she was attacked so strongly for for the red shoes she was wearing, for the clothes she was wearing, for the way she was reacting. In her regard, I guess, as being the first female president, this was all emphasized even stronger. And really, as a woman, I felt quite insulted by all of the insults she had to face in that regard. And then, uh, I guess that's why now a woman didn't even come close to being a candidate, I guess.
What would be the first thing you would change from this type of infrastructure in order to make it more accessible and also welcoming for women?
I mean, first of all, I would do more education on the party level. I would really try to empower more women to actually join the party, but not to be left alone, but to be educated in the local government and so on. But I think in our party, it's actually being quite done. We have a strong women's forum. That's actually the one that is encouraging um, the party to change its views and to open up its rules and so on. But maybe in the infrastructure, I don't think the quota system is enough. We have a quota system in place, but at the end of the day, now in this parliament, we have, I think, at least 10% less women than we had in the previous one. So you see, even the quota system doesn't really
It's decreasing on so many levels.
bring to the table more women than before, isn't it? Because you tend to think it would gradually go up, but it's not. It goes up and then it comes down again.
Yeah.
The infrastructure, maybe you should change the rule of procedure and introduce some quota in the rule of procedure of parliament, but that's quite a crazy idea.
Can you explain it?
Maybe say a vice president of a parliament should always be a woman. It is reserved for a opposition member, but maybe say
Okay,
also a
something like
woman.
that. Yeah.
Maybe say all of the
Yeah.
maybe all the committees have to have a precipitation that would be more 40-60 at least in the favor of women, isn't it? So like that's what the infrastructure I mean, because the quota system is already in place and you don't need to change the law in that regard. But at the end of the day, we're still faced with the fact that there are like 32% women in parliament at the moment. So that's quite lower than it was in the previous parliament.
Last but
Mhm.
not least, which advice would you give your younger self now when it comes to running for office? I love this one.
It's a good one. It makes I need to think about it. Advice would be always stay on your path. Don't let anybody tell you that your ideas cannot be are not to be empowered. I'm sorry, sometimes I don't get the right word, but
No, that's totally fine. I
but
get it.
a lot of time, if you have a progressive idea, especially as a woman, you're really discouraged to follow it through. I'm lucky because I'm quite stubborn. So when I decide upon something, I don't care what other people are saying, even if they are above me and leaders. When I think something is right, I will go my way. But maybe as a younger self, I would say, don't overthinking, just go your way and be confident in yourself and your capabilities, because that's, of course, another thing. We as women are always discrediting ourselves with thinking, oh, we're not capable enough. And that's not true.
Yeah.
I've seen so many women being amazing in so many fields, but I've never seen many men who'd be thinking, oh, am I capable enough? You see, that's one of the difference, maybe going back to before, is that women are always questioning their worth and their abilities. Never seen a man do that. They take the position and then they fill it through.
They
That's also
figure it
one of the
out, and we try to figure it out before taking a position. That is
Exactly.
so true.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, I've recently really come across this thought is how many potential is being wasted from women. We waste on ourselves by overthinking and thinking
Yes.
we are not capable enough. And that's lost potential, that's lost global potential. And I believe we are losing on so many aspects. So if to all the women who are listening to this podcast, if you want to run for something, if you want to go for something, go for it. You'll figure it out on the way. As Meira perfectly said. My goodness, Meira, thank you so much for this incredible deep dive. It was really a deep dive, and I'm all the more excited to go into the fast question and answer section, which is more informal. And we want to get to know you personally a bit better.
Okay. Ready.
In one word, what is the political mood in Slovenia at the moment?
Challenging.
Wonderfully said. Was there a moment during your electoral campaign that was not caught by cameras, that you'll never forget, that was really touching?
There were quite a few, but one that was really most touching was a friend of mine a friend whose child died a few years ago. He was a special needs child. And before a debate on TV, we were just talking, and she was like, our little boy Timchko, he's with you, and he's grateful about all the work you did. So it just brought me to tears, actually. And then you could see that it's all worth it.
It's all worth fighting, even though it gets challenging, as you perfectly described the mood currently in Slovenia. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much. And next one is, how do you best deal with criticism?
Get angry, cry, and then move on.
Wonderful said.
Unjust. If it's not, if it's unjust. But if it's a constructive criticism, then you accept it and try to do better.
Yeah. What is a book every woman who wants to get in politics involved should read, without question?
Well, I'm not into political books, I'm not gonna lie. I just love Coelho's books very much so. So I think they give you a lot of great life advices.
Which is the most underrated leadership skill?
Definitely empathy.
See, that's why we need more women. If you could have dinner with any woman from European political history, dead or alive, both are possible, who would it be? Who would you choose? And what would be the first question you'd ask her?
Well, definitely Angela Merkel. I think
she is fantastic, right?
Yeah, she's fascinating, though. Even if she's from the other political spectrum, I really respect her stances. And the first question would definitely be, what was it that really gave her strength to enter politics on that level in that time?
Yeah.
Because for us today, it's so much easier. But at that time, and in that infrastructure, which was really, really predominantly male.
Yes.
And did she feel that she had to change her characteristics to fit in the male society? Did she have to deny her femininity in order to enter the table? Also that. And was she heard from the beginning, or how did she manage to be heard and respected by so many prominent politicians?
I'd love to have her on the podcast. I'll ask her. If it ever comes to that, I'll definitely ask her. My goodness. Right. Okay, next one. What do you know now about campaigning that you wish you would have known earlier?
I always knew it's important to have a grassroots campaign, but now I know that it's most important to directly speak to people. Because of social media, we tend to disregard the terrain campaign. I think that's the most important one, to really try to get to as many as people directly, to have a direct contact as possible. Door-to-door campaign, classic one, but I think still works the best.
Classic one. It works the best, right? I think it was it's a marvelous invention even. I'd say stick to it. What is a hobby that you recently picked up again?
Tennis. Tennis. I'm really learning to play tennis.
Oh my, I've been meaning to try it. Amazing. You have to post some pictures about it because I find people who play tennis really fascinating. It looks so nice, you know?
It does. It's a nice relaxing, but I used to play as a child and didn't in so many years. So I took upon it again. Yeah.
What is your go-to advice on productivity?
Productivity. Definitely never overwork yourself. You have to take time for yourself and giving your body a break in order to be really productive later on. So I think as women, we tend to overwork ourselves, and then you go into overdrive, and then your productivity basically lowers. So just have a balance.
I have to keep telling myself that very often, too often, to be honest. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing that and by that also reminding me
Thank you.
of it. So thank you so much. And last but not least, what do you hope that women or people who watch this episode will take away after finishing this episode?
Well, I hope that especially younger girls will see that politics is not a male-driven field, that different kind of women, not just one stereotype kind, can enter politics, and that you can be yourself and really do the good for society. As I said on the beginning, if you're not going to be involved with politics, politics is definitely going to be involved with you. So I think all of us have issues that we want to raise, we want to solve, and women have to come up front in order to really put emphasis on those kind of issues. And different kind of women have different kind of ideas, and we are more than needed, not welcome. We are needed at the table for the future. So I hope that after watching this, maybe at least some of the girls watching would decide to actually join some party and join and try and be more activated in politics.
Thank you so much, Meira, for sharing about your career, but also your insights. I really found them fascinating and I've learned so much from it. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being here and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the invitation. Thank you for this amazing talk.